Hello, dearest friends, beautiful souls of love and light. This is Nenari, Princess of the Sea, coming to you with the next video in the series that I'm doing here about the sacred path of twin soul relationships. This video, appropriately called I'm Here, because if you recall from the first video that I did, I basically had ended that video where I had spoken about on our journey, my beloved sweet troubadour and I, about the song I'm Here. And you can make reference to that video, here in my YouTube page. This video here is going to be about the soul recognition that occurs and what is perceived to be the temporary spiritual awakening of sorts within the sacred path of twin soul relationships. And there is a soul recognition, which I began talking about in the first video, with things such as I'm here and whatnot, and I'm going to delve deeper into this and sharing with you of our journey, my beloved sweet troubadour and I, so that you have an essence of what that recognition, that soul recognition is. Twin souls share the same soul or the same soul signature. And so as a result, there are many things that unfold within this soul recognition of really coming to know and understand who you are together. Because basically twin souls are simply the same soul encased within two physical forms. And so on our journey, what had happened just before, this is backtracking just a tiny bit because it was only a couple of days before this, just a couple of days before Chris had sent me I'm Here, he had sent me Song of the Troubadour. Now, he had sent me the manuscript and then also the song as well that accompanies with it. And it was interesting because, and it is interesting because you know how when you first meet someone or you first connect with someone, even if it's over the phone, or internet, you just immediately know, your intuition knows and has an intuition inkling about that person, about their energy, about who they are to you. You have that instant soul recognition. Well, for twin souls on the sacred path, it's even deeper. And it unfolds in infinite layers. And it started for us, I mean, pretty much immediately, right? Upon physically coming together. And so this first letter that one of the first letters that Chris had written to me had said, he's been known to call me precious. I mean, right from the beginning. And his first letter of that had said precious woman, when he wrote it. And basically, he had written that he was sending me Song of the Troubadour. And in it, he says, at this moment, my very life force is shivering within my very body. To understand why will be your very heartbeat soon. Attached is the manuscript that channeled through me barely a fortnight ago. Already it is to become a film and soon a book. Understand, I spend my days in meditation deep in nature and have given the entirety of my being to the light and love. My career is as a master guitarist devoted to spreading light and love through concerts. I pray now you read Song of the Troubadour, which I have attached. As a woman of light, you will resonate as my princess upon each verse. Namaste, and thankful you are now in my life. P.S. The universe has brought this manuscript to you. You alone will understand why. Looking forward to hearing from you after you've read it. When I first received Song of the Troubadour, I have to admit, because of where I was at, as I shared last evening, for those of you who listened to the satsang meditation that I posted up on YouTube last evening, if you haven't, I will provide the link down in the video description and you can go ahead and listen to it. When I first connected, and I made reference to this in the first video as well, when we first connected, I was in that space of, being a light worker, spreading the love and light in the world, not interested in a relationship, but at the same time, my soul was calling for it. My heart was calling for it. Whether myself and ego or not was, resisting it, the fact of the matter is that my heart and soul was taking me to where I originally was intended to go. And so Chris's letter with this first intuition, he knew who I was and said so very clean, clearly and plainly. And so when I first received the manuscript, it was like I was compelled. I stayed up till 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning that evening and just could not put the manuscript down. And there was something very deep in my heart that was resonating with it. But at first, when I responded back to him, my letter in response back to him was, very much being in that space of love and light. I wasn't allowing it to touch me as deeply as I knew it could, even though it was stirring my heart. And I basically had responded kind of more in a love and light space, still being in that space of God is my lover, rather than opening my heart to him, to Chris. And so I was kind of like in that space of, okay, there was the acknowledgement there, but, the soul recognition was there, but at the same time, there was a bit of hesitance, and the awakening, though, was happening. And so what had happened is that a day or so later, I would write to him, and I was quoting parts from the story. And what I had said to him was, I feel so connected to Song of the Troubadour for reasons that defy earthly dimensional words. And I know in your heart and soul you know this and understand this, so I'm free from needing to explain it. And so it was stirring in my heart, even though there was that bit of, resistance there, that soul recognition was definitely coming through. And so for you on your journey in the sacred path of the twin soul relationship, you may experience this as well. Not all twin souls experience this. Some just come together and it's blissful and it's wonderful, depending upon what your soul agreement is. Our soul agreement, was a little different, and there's a whole core group of us who are going through this, and this is why I'm doing this video and the other videos as well, to, help assist you on the journey with this, of understanding it. And so, Chris had responded back, and we had begun our dialogue with one another, our discourse with one another. And he had written back several things, but one of the things that he had written was, this moment, our hearts are one, regardless of physical distance or meeting in the physical realm yet. So he knew with that intuition of who we are together, and so did I. And it was, reflecting itself in our letters to one another. And he had also said, my intuition tells me that something phenomenal is happening, and we are in synchronicity, perfectly aligned for an incredible thing to come. So his intuition already knew. And it's in that intuition that, as I get further into these videos, when I start getting into the other layers or stages or phases of the sacred union of twin soul relationships, the sacred path, what you will find is that there's something called the crisis that happens, the testing that happens of that love, the runner dynamic in which one or both twin souls run. And it's really imperative that that initial intuition that you have about one another, that initial love that is there, and that soul recognition is so important to come back to again and again and again during those phases of the testing and the crisis and the runner dynamic that occurs, because that's what helps you to remember. In later letters, Chris would write to me and say, that I'm always here, and that our only job is for us to remember, to always remember. that we're always to remember the love between us. And so it's very key, and I cannot stress that enough in this video, and I will try to make sure I do in the subsequent videos as well. But always refer back to this video, because that first intuition that you have, that first soul recognition that you have, and awakening is very important to remember to go back to in those times of darkness, like Chris said in I'm Here. In these times of darkness, honey, don't give up. And even now, after what happened last night, if anyone listens to the satsang meditation that I have hosted on YouTube here, you will understand that, something very rare happened last night for me. I, in such vulnerability, just kind of broke down last night. And something I very rarely do on the air or in meditation or what have you. But, in those times of darkness, he's saying to me, honey, don't give up. And I'm not giving up. So, in the process of the journey, as I was reading more and more of Song of the Troubadour, and after finishing reading it, I actually began to read it again and again and again, because it was resonating so strongly with me. And one of the responses that I gave back to him, to Chris, was a poem, a prose poem that just poured through me in response to Song of the Troubadour, called Princess of the Sea. And if you look down in the video description, I will leave the link for it. It is on my YouTube page. As I recorded it, I had written it out and had sent it to him. And when I sent it to him, I sent it to him with this picture that I believe I may have put in the Princess of the Sea video. I'm not sure if I did or not. But I do also have it in other videos that, I've created on my YouTube page and on his YouTube page that we have his music on. And it's of this boat at sea, the ship at sea, and it's the moving waters. And it's actually a GIF file, which actually the waters actually move. So when I had sent him the poem, Princess of the Sea, his response back to me was, thank you. Yes, I received your poem, and its beauty and heartfelt soul traveled the thousands of kilometers and was heard immediately. And then in that same letter, he had asked me, how can I get the waters to move so that he could put it on his website? And I had written back in response, how is it that you just touch my soul so deeply that it moves me to utter tears? You are so unfair. Well, this "you are so unfair" would later on become a running joke between us, in which we had written letters months later, in which we would joke about not being fair. And so I had also responded, how do you make the waters move? My dear man, the waters are moving within me and the tears are flowing endlessly. And then I had said that I was listening to I'm Here at that point. And as I lay dreaming of you and of our life and of the life that is ours, and of one day that we will physically sing in a duet of song together, within our hearts, I feel you. And that was the moment that I started really feeling him, in that soul recognition, to where I could feel, and I still do to this moment, and he knows it. I mean, every moment song is coming through him, I'll text message him or email him, call him, and say, baby, is song coming through? And he will say yes. I can feel the lyrics, I can feel the, inflections in his voice, I can feel the silence between the notes and the notes themselves. I hear music in a way, and I write about this in Song of the Princess, that, many just don't hear on this earth. I just have this unique connection, and that's something that started with me as a child. As a child, I would have those hearing tests, that you do in school, and they would always set it on the lowest setting, and I could always hear it, and they always thought it was strange how I could do that. But I hear things, and I see things, and I know things in a realm that, is just beyond our sights, beyond our hearing. And so I was able to tune into him, and it was also indicative of putting something out there when I said, maybe we'll physically sing in a duet, a song of love within our hearts. And so I had sent him a poem called I Feel You. Around that same time frame was the first time that we also spent time together on the phone. It was the first time I had called him. And in our conversation that evening, we spoke about a lot of things, but one of the things that we spoke about, I had made a joking comment, which turned out to be quite true, and I had said something to the effect of, "You will find that you've never met anyone like me." Before. And he would later on tell me, Chris would later on tell me that he knew that was true. And I'm not like other women. And so he very much intuitively knew that. And so we had also talked about a song called Love Showers, because when I had called him that evening, he was just finishing penning the lyrics and composition of Love Showers, although he didn't have a name for it. And he was tossing around ideas about, what he would name it. And he kind of said to me, it's going to be like love washing over me or something about showers washing over me. And I had turned around and said to him, well, it sounds like a love shower to me. And he was like, well, that's it. There it was. So there was the inspiration. I had given him the title of the song. And so I have that song as well, Love Showers, listed here in the video description, so that you can listen to it. And it's quite a beautiful song. And what had happened, through the course of that, is that this began a co-creational process with us in various layers and various ways of the music, to where I would feel him and send energy to him, and energetically we were creating the music together. Even though he was penning the lyrics, and I take no credit for, anything that has come through him, nor do I want credit. They are all his songs. He owns the copyrights to them and whatever. I don't, want any credit for it. Just the fact that we energetically created them, and then in some cases physically created them, also was just, that alone was just a blessing of love. And what had also happened in that process is that we started having memories of our life together in Lemuria. And one evening in March of 2008, Chris had written to me a letter, talking about the crystal that resides here. And, we had talked about our memories of Lemuria. And in his letters, he would say, for me to know about the crystal means that I'm incredibly tuned with the planet, similar to the infinity aligned as the heart chakra where this crystal lay. That is why I'm here. For you are right. This crystal is Lemuria and is why we are here, you and I. There are writings within the Akasha records of Lemuria which I have seen, as I can feel you have as well, which foretell of our coming together. And then he further writes about how he, stays in this resonance of love and light. And he also understands that it's time for such to occur, that, we come together. And he writes, yet I also understand of this pure crystal which resides of Lemuria, and its resonance of all forms of love, of relationships, of oneness, which all, including me, are here to experience, which is where Song of the Troubadour was born from. I suspect that you are part of this with me, as have shown me. There is a pure crystal that resonates here. I meditate here where the crystal lays. The waters are incredibly pure and beautiful in colors beyond description. Eagles fly every season above me as I meditate, and often the land and the trees directly above me. I understand why. I also understand why I must be in this place alone, so very alone, until the princess and I are to be here in such sacred land. I suspect you are such. So he very much intuitively knew. And I responded back to him in my letters of how I knew about the crystal and how I knew about the crystal cave and how I suspect as well that I am such, being his princess. And so that soul recognition was becoming deeper and deeper. And a few nights later, it became even deeper within our letters because he had written to me this letter. Princess, at 2 a.m., I now lay my head on a pillow that has not been shared in an eternity of a time at sea. Many villages have granted maidens willing, but the princess alone is to share this sacred space. Tonight I ache in longing for her arrival. The very seas mock my hope of such a shoreline. Tonight the next tour was decided. In other words, the depth of the sea without a shore yet again has been charted. I sleep alone, Troubadour. My response back to him was this letter. Troubadour, blessed dreams, my sweet one. Know that the princess is sharing the sacred space with you. Dream with you, for I, too, am longing for the troubadour's arrival. I lay my head upon the pillow right next to him, embraced in his arms, sleeping in love together with you. Maybe your tours will soon find you closer to me, for in these times of darkness, honey, don't give up. You are free from sleeping alone, because I'm right here. Soft kisses of love and sweet dreams. I will see you in our soul travels together, Princess. He had responded, thank you. Remember, always love finds a way. Good night, Troubadour. I had written back, oh, dearest Troubadour, you are so very welcome. I am free from being a mirage, because he indicated in his letter also that even if you're a mirage at sea, from too many nights at sea, I am very real, as the tears I flow from the sea of which you sail adrift. Yes, love will always find a way, and I know this to be so. We are meant to be, and love will find a way for this to occur. I am unsure how or when, and yet I can feel it so deeply. I can be it, as if it's occurring in this moment. For in another dimension, at this moment, I am in your arms. Now to bring that here to this dimension, I leave in the hands of the master artist to create what is to be. I ask the sea of my tears bring you home to me. Signed, Princess of the Sea. And he had responded back, thank you. When the days turn into seasons that turn into years, the understanding of the master artist's aloneness is understood. I get standing ovations and sold-out concerts, yet when I leave the stage it becomes even more real. I understand perhaps more than what I should, and yet I find comfort in knowing you are here with me as I am with you. I'm here, always right here. So our deep soul recognition was really coming to light in our letters to one another. And in those times of darkness that have been occurring, I reflect back on these letters to help me remember. And there are often times that I send them to him as well, because when we first were together, winter solstice night, our first night that we spent together, he had asked me to help him to remember, because he oftentimes forgets. And I made a promise to him, a vow, that I would help him to remember. And so I often send him these letters, even in moments when he lashes out at me and tries to deny that he's written them, or tries to deny that he's in love with me, or, things of that nature. I come back in unconditional love and I send him those letters. Help him to remember. And so what occurred within that soul recognition and the temporary awakening, the reason that it's called a temporary awakening is because the awakening is there and it's the core essence of who you are coming out, just like these letters that I just shared with you. What happens though, and the reason why it appears to be temporary is because then the crisis kicks in and the testing of that love kicks in and the runner dynamic kicks in. And so it appears to be, temporary that you have this, instant soul recognition and then all this other stuff comes up. And in the next series of videos, I will explain what that means and why that occurs and everything else. But for now, I'm just going to focus on the soul recognition, because what had occurred next in the coming weeks is that I had two speaking gigs, um, one in Northern California and the other in Sedona, and there was a bit of this testing coming through of the other layers. And like I said, you intermix some of these layers. So, I may intermix some of this within it, because what occurred is this instant soul recognition and awakening that was occurring within me. There was a bit of resistance coming up within me about this, because I was like, honestly, my first reaction was, oh, hell no. Okay, I'm here, I get it, it's him, I know it's my twin soul, but no, I'm not going through this again, because what it was doing is it was also starting to stir up the pain within me about Steve. And I was trying to push that away. So the speaking gig that I had up in Northern California was a dear friend of mine, named Brian. And he asked me to come to this retreat, and each of us we were all going to commune together, and each of us were going to bring a piece of the puzzle, in doing this retreat. And so mine was to, speak on one soul relationships. Well, Brian plays guitar, and there was also another gentleman who was there who happened to be a soulmate, which I had a very deep soul connection with in that weekend, and we kind of lived lifetime upon lifetime in that weekend, this gentleman and I. And I was being smacked right in the face with, okay, this is your twin soul, here it is. Brian's playing guitar, this other gentleman's playing guitar, this other gentleman was coming to me with songs of his that he wanted to share with me, and it was just like I'm getting, overwhelmed. I'm going, oh my goodness. Well, within creation of song, what had occurred, because I had, said in my letter, a week or so before this, about maybe we could sing a song in duet together. Chris had twigged on that evidently, and had written to me back on the 19th of March in '08. That he said, I will allow Spirit to give me the song we are to sing together. I will record it and send it to you when it is given. Troubadour. And so that evening, and the evenings after it, I was sending energy. He would write to me a couple of nights later. Midnight Friday, the guitar is now a portal. Vision the song to be the voice of angels carrying the message we are to hear and give. And I wrote back saying, I'm sending energy, love, and vision as the guitar is now to be a portal. Play me. Play as the angels carry the message we are to hear and give to all, of love, of light, of life, of all that is. And out of that, and our love letters to one another, also came, speaking of playing, also came poetry that was flowing through us at this time, where what would occur is something that we've been doing all this time now in the last 4.5 years, where we meld our words together of our letters. I will create that and meld our words together in poetry. In the video descriptions, if you see on the YouTube page, I've also done that, and it's something that he's always loved and I've always loved. We've loved together as part of our co-creation together, to where we had poetry come through, and a poem called Play Me had come through, from my words and his words of our love letters together. And subsequently, eventually, it would be parlayed into a book that Chris would write letters to me, saying a book was to be written called Love Changes Everything. And he ended up writing the preface to that book. So a book of our poetry, of our words melded together, came into being as well. But within those couple of days, what had happened was I Am We Are was coming through. And so then he had sent it to me, in those couple of days later. And the song I Am We Are came through him. And I was being the energetic portal, and we were being in that togetherness, the two of us energetically sending energy together. And it became this simple, beautiful song. And I have the video link below here in the YouTube description of this video, so that you can see it and you can hear the music. Because what had happened was is that when he had sent the song to me, intuitively, I just knew what to do. I went downstairs into my spiritual center and I recorded my voice, and then I melded our voices together. And I had sent it to him with an email that said, boy, do I have a surprise for you, see attached, kind of thing. And he had written back and, had said that it sounds wonderful. It will be a pleasure to do this song as a duet with you. I felt simplicity was the most powerful of all. It will be magical. Namaste. And then he had, made reference to that. He had got my voicemail because I had called him and left him a message that I had sent him, you know, um, the song. And so that was our first creation together, in music, and how beautifully it flowed. And then what proceeded to happen um, kind of just really blew me away and really solidified for me, and us in that moment of that soul recognition even deeper, even further, in that soul recognition and awakening, so that for you, you may have similar experiences with your twin soul on the sacred path, in which you just come into this space of just inner knowing. And what occurred was is that I had this speaking gig in Sedona. And normally, when I would do speaking gigs, and I would drive to the speaking gigs and what have you, I always have a long list of, CDs and, albums and whatnot of music that I would listen to. Enya and, Deva Premal and Mitan and, various different, spiritual music and whatnot. And some, non-spiritual music too, if I was, in the mood to rock, and just kind of listening to earthly music and whatnot too. However, this trip, all I did was I had burned a CD of I Am We Are, of Song of the Troubadour, which he had sent to me, the song, which I also have the link for here in the video description, of Love Showers, of, the songs that he had sent me, I'm Here and whatnot. And that was all I listened to the entire drive. I could not listen to anybody else's music, and I found that very odd because it was, my soul was awakening. I knew that's what it was, and my heart was stirring. And on the journey, there were many signs that were given to me. I saw a seagull in the clouds. Later, I also saw a heart with two dolphins in the clouds that I had sent a picture to Chris of, in that weekend. And, so many things were happening. And the retreat center that I was speaking at, a dear friend of mine was also putting it on. She asked me to come and speak. And the retreat center that I was at there in Sedona had no cell phone coverage, had no, coverage of any sort. So I kept feeling this strong stirring in my soul and in my heart that I needed to call Chris and talk with him, about all of this, because all of this was happening. We had the co-creation together of, I Am We Are. We had, all of this soul recognition, our love letters to one another, and this deepness. And I knew something was really, occurring. But, it was like, okay, what's going on? So there was only a house phone in the retreat center that you could use with a calling card. Now, the calling card from the States to Canada, you know, the long distance rates change. And so it turns out I only had 44 minutes on this calling card when I called. And so I thought 44, that was really interesting because at that time I hadn't put two and two together that that's actually Chris's life path number in numerology. And so I was like, okay, no problem. So I picked up the phone and I called him. And I basically said to him, you know, what is going on between us? I know you're feeling something. Our letters are reflecting it. I'm feeling something very deep. What's going on between us? And it was the first time that he told me, I love you. He said, I love you. And this wasn't an I love you in an altruistic standpoint of I love all beings kind of thing. This was I love you, as in a deep, soulful connection of the sacred path of sacred union. He had also written a letter to me about, you know, how he knew I was capable, as well as he, of being on that sacred path and that sacred union. And so I kind of just sat there speechless and didn't really say much. I did respond back, of course, and told him that I love him too. And it just came out of me. I mean, no hesitation. You know, he didn't hesitate either. Again, it was that soul recognition, intuitive knowing of saying, I love you, from that deep, soulful place of knowing that, you know, who we are together as the princess and the troubadour. And I had also come to, in this time frame just before this, I'd come to realize about his song Be a River, which in Lemuria is said in Lemurian language is Ashtakinta. And later we would end up speaking in Lemurian tongue to one another. And he and I are the only two on this earth that I know of right now that can speak fluently Lemurian that I've come across, and we can understand each other. Now, I've come across people who speak it, but they have no idea what they're saying. He and I can have a fluent conversation, Chris and I, my beloved. And we totally understand and know what we're saying to one another. And so I had intuitively, when I had heard Be a River on his website, it was instrumental, but I intuitively knew that it was actually had lyrics. And I could hear the lyrics and I could feel the lyrics. And because I was tuning into him and feeling him and knowing him and just that soul recognition was so deep within me, I began singing it in Lemurian. And then when I was on the phone with him that night about talking about love showers, he had proceeded to tell me, well, you do know that the lyrics to Be a River is in Song of the Troubadour. And I was like, are you serious? And he's like, yeah, go look in, you know, the manuscript is in there. And I was like, wow, okay. So I was deeply feeling Be a River flowing through me when I picked up the phone and called him in those moments when he said, I love you to me. And I felt that river of love flowing through us and between us and in us in those moments. And what my speaking gig was about one soul relationships or twin soul relationships, the sacred path, the sacred union. Although at that point, sacred path hadn't come through him yet, but it was, you know, to come later. But in those moments when we were talking, he had asked me, you know, so when are you doing your speaking gig? And at that point, I had said, in about an hour. Well, actually, I should backtrack because before this, after he had said, I love you to me, and I had said, I love you to him, he began pouring his heart out to me in such vulnerability, sharing with me about things that happened between him and his former wife, of the divorce, of his many other relationships. A baby that he had many years ago with a woman that he loved very deeply, in which he had lost that baby and had lost her. Some very deep things that was really stirring my heart and bringing me to tears listening to him on the phone. And he just was in such vulnerability and sharing with me all of this. And at the same moment, I was trying hard because part of me was also thinking in the back of my mind, here I've got this calling card. Oh my God, what happens? This man that I'm totally falling in love with, and he with falling in love with me, is sharing the vulnerability from his heart, you know. And what happens if my calling card runs out? It's another 3 kilometers or so to go get another one from the office. And so, you know, part of me was sitting there thinking, oh God, I would feel so bad if the, you know, phone call got cut off when he's being so vulnerable with me and sharing his heart. And thank goodness that was free from being the case. I actually, ironically and divinely perfect, had exactly 4 minutes on that calling card, and I actually still have the calling card. Don't know if it's any good anymore, but I do still have the calling card. I kind of kept it as a memento. But in those moments, he asked me then after we had shared, and I was just holding him in those moments and loving him, um, and just letting him know that I was here, and allowing him that space to share with me. And our bond was, you know, we were forming a deeper and deeper bond between us as a result. And then he had asked me, you know, when is your speaking gig? And at that point, it was in about an hour. And I'd said, you know, in about an hour, why? And he said, um, would you honor me by doing the circle with me? And I was kind of like, what do you mean? And he said, I'm going to go meditate now, you know, at our place, you know, where the crystal lay. And I will be sending energy to you. And if you will honor me, we will do this circle together. I will be there with you and we'll do it together. And I was like, you know, without even a hesitation, I was just like, yes, you know, of course, I would be honored to honor you. You know, yes. And then he had said something to me, which at first kind of went over my head. And I said, I know, but he had said it 2 other times. He said, and you will know that I am with you. And at first I was like, yeah, I know, you know, kind of like that. And he was like, no, I really want you to understand this and hear me when I say this. You will know that I am with you. And I thought, okay, you know, and I had said, okay, I know. And he said, you will know that I am with you. And then he had said goodbye. We had said goodbye. So I had went into the retreat center and had went to set things up, the crystals out and whatnot, get everything ready, cushions and whatnot. And one of the gentlemen who was there at this retreat center, his name was John. Now, just before I left for this retreat to speak for this speaking gig, um, for some reason, and I did not know what the reason was, but I felt called to write to Chris and ask him what his middle name was. And he had written back and told me that his middle name was John. So I had taken and, you know, basically taken his middle name and made it into a acronym, and had said, you know, what that acronym meant, something about joy and oneness, I think, or something of that thing I had written. I don't remember exactly what it was. I'd have to go look at our letters. But I had done that and then just left it at that. I didn't even think about it. Well, this gentleman who was in this retreat with me and had come in, he and I, you know, had formed a bond. He was about, I think, 21 at that time, so old enough to be my son. And I kind of taken him under my wing and was mentoring him. And we were speaking about crystals and the crystal grid. And he was very in tune to crystals and sacred geometry and Lemuria. And so I was mentoring him during the retreat. And so he had come in, and this was before anybody had shown up. And to also reference this, that, you know, for anyone who hasn't read Song of the Troubadour or knows about Song of the Troubadour, it's also a reference to what I'm wearing here within this necklace. Chris wears the same thing. He has my ring, which is engraved with princess on it, and also the Om symbol. And I subsequently received another version of this before I had this one here. But this ring here is engraved with Troubadour, and it is his ring. And at some point we will give our rings to each other. But I wear this as well as the necklace that he also gave me of this beautiful stone just recently, a couple of months ago actually. But at any rate, what had happened was is this gentleman, John, had come in all excited, and he's like, Nenari, Nenari, I just got all this beautiful stuff and I have to show you. Do we have time? I went into town, during the break and whatnot, and I had said to him, well, I guess we have time. It's supposed to be 5 minutes before we're supposed to start, and yet no one's here, so, okay. So the first thing that he took out, he placed it in my hands, and it was wrapped up in that, bubble wrap, mini bubble wrap stuff. And when he placed it in my hands, I looked down, and I was floored, to say the very least. And not much floors me in life, but I was, because of what I've been through in this life alone, I was floored, and the tears just started pouring from me, because what was in my hands, that he had placed in my hands, was a hand-carved wooden Om. And moments before this, if you recall, Chris had said to me, "You will know that I am with you." And I know that he wears this necklace, as do I, but I had not worn the necklace at this point, right? And so a flood of tears just came upon me, and I looked up at John, and here is this man whose name is John, same as my beloved's middle name, giving me this Om symbol. And it was like, oh my God, right in that moment was the moment that I totally, completely fell in love with my beloved. It was already welling up, it was already there, but it was just, that was the crescendo of that soul recognition, of that awakening within me. And I looked up at John, and with tears streaming down my face, I said, "John, you do not know what this means to me." And he looked at me and he said, "Well, it's the Om symbol, it's the universal sound, it's, it's this, it's that, right?" And I just looked at him and I'm like, "Yeah, I know it's that, but no, you don't understand what this really means to me." And at this point, I had told him a little bit about Chris, but really, nothing, to be honest. He really knew nothing about, what was going on. And so said to me, he says, "Well, would you mind telling me then? Because you're kind of starting to freak me out, in a good way, but I don't quite get it, you know." And so I had laughed and I said, "Yes, I'll share some of it with you here, and the rest I will share, with everyone in the One Soul Relationship Circle, in the satsang circle." And so I shared with him what I had just shared with you here. And I asked him also, I said, "Who did you get this for?" And he proceeded to tell me that he had gotten it for someone who he considered his soulmate, which again was another connection, as well, another confirmation, soulmate, twin soul, type thing. So I had asked him if he would take me to the store in Sedona downtown where he got it. And he said, "Sure." So the following day, I did receive two wooden carved Om symbols, which I had mailed, one of them to Chris, which he still has. I subsequently gave him the second one, which I had for a time and held on to, and then gave it to him for Christmas later that year. And also in that same shop, I was drawn to some Lemurian seed crystals, which I had taken a picture of, and they were twin soul starseed crystals. And I was taking a picture, and I had backed up into this display cabinet, and this display cabinet had an Om symbol with a circle around it. And that was what I wore. It was sterling silver, and that was what I wore for a long time. On it, I had placed a gift that someone had given to me for mentoring them, of a crystal ball with two dolphins meeting as one, two being as one on it, and I had it, and I still have a picture of it. I subsequently, on the first night that we spent together, Chris and I, winter solstice that year, I had given that necklace to him, and he had ended up losing it in the snow, which he felt very bad about and had told me on the phone. He had written to me in reference to it, that he had lost it, but then told me on the phone that he felt really bad about losing that necklace because he knew how much it meant to me and how much it meant to us. And I had felt bad about it too. But then it gave birth to this, because this then just came to me. I found this necklace, this Om symbol, which is the exact uh, symbol, Om symbol, the exact same one that Chris has, which was just divine how it had come to me. And then this ring, which is also a Celtic ring, has the Celtic knot of love on it and had it engraved. So it was a blessing, even though that got lost in the snow that night. It did. And then what subsequently happened over the coming months was letters between us, started to unfold where we would have more memories of Lemuria, and we would also create Where There's Love. I also have the video posted here in the video description for that as well. It was one night when I was living in a different place for a month, staying with a friend, helping her to open her spiritual center and speaking there and whatnot. And he was working on Where There's Love. It was pouring through him, and he was kind of stuck on the chorus. And I called him that night and helped him work the chorus through. And in subsequent versions, he's reverted back to some of those lyrics that he originally started with that weren't working. And that's okay too. It's all beautiful. I did help him with the lyrics of it. And he subsequently, when he sent me Where There's Love in April of 2008, he sent me this letter. Precious. Here's the song that we worked on together, I recorded last night. The lyrics are also attached. Thank you for your help with this. It is so awesome creating with you. I have an incredible gift in you, in our love, and always remember how precious you are to me. Namaste, Troubadour. And I had written back in response of how much I loved the song and how each moment I'm listening to it, I'm thinking of him, I'm thinking of us. He would also subsequently write to me during my time of living of that month. We had a few days where we weren't able to write to one another because I was busy helping out with the spiritual center. It's a rare occurrence that, we are in contact with each other every day, and it's a rare occurrence that, a day or two goes by that we're not. And so after about 3 or 4 days, he had written this letter to me, in which he said, the subject line was thank you, and he says, thank you. My vow to you is that this night, this day, this season, and this life, I am aligned with you. From being resonates the doing. A fire's very essence is heat and light. We are such a fire. I may be in Canada and you in between where you're living right now, yet our logs are as one, joined in the same truth, spirit, and song. The master artist of all creation is our partner in our union. Thank you for burning with me. I vow to give no less than all I am to you and to all. Prince, aka Troubadour, far at sea. I subsequently had written back to him, thank you as well for burning with me. And that I indeed know that, the master artist is our partner in our union. And from that, letters, in June of that year, where he wrote to me and I to him about Lemuria, our memories of Lemuria, in which he wrote this, here's the truth. Lemuria and Atlantis were connected similar as the north to the south. Our connection, in quotes, is because of this. There was no princess/troubadour then, but I was a sailor at the time, and you were my lover, as you are now. I saw the eruptions and the red glows at sea, and we were connecting, and both hearts were torn by the departure. I felt inclined to sail into it and save the land. When I left, we vowed to one another of our love for one another, and our vow to never leave one another. Our love and our vows to one another go very deep. The energetic flows from that migrated into the space-time continuum of the now, and is why we are to be together now in this life, why we will never leave one another, and why we are meant to be no matter how much I fight this. It is written in the Akasha. You have seen it there, as have I. We are to continue as we are/were in Lemuria, and to bring Lemuria back here to this now. Now in this life, you are my princess, and I am your troubadour. It is written in the Akasha for us to be together. Namaste, precious. That's the power of the soul recognition and that awakening that happens. Further on, we would end up creating There's a World Together also. Again, he wrote all the lyrics to it, but what had happened is that he had messaged me saying that song was coming through because I felt such. And I had messaged him how wonderful I would love to hear it when it is done. And he had written back, that hear it, that I'll do more than that. And if not, then he had failed. And then he asked me what my vision was for There's a World, if I could tell him what it was, and that perhaps some of it would end up into the lyrics of the song. And indeed, much of what I wrote to him, he used and indeed created in inspiration from my words, the song, There's a World. So I was very instrumental in helping him to create that. And again, it's all his work, and I don't want to claim authorship of it at all. But in those moments, he also asked me in August to write Song of the Princess. And I have to be honest, when he first asked me, I wasn't ready to go there. But I will share more about that, I think, in the subsequent video that is to come, after this. Or perhaps it'll come through Hear Me Now, I don't know. But we also had letters in which, speaking of Song of the Troubadour, he asked me to write the stage play, or the screenplay for Song of the Troubadour. And in my heart, I knew I wasn't meant to do it, and that he was meant to do it, and that I wasn't meant to give that gift to him. So I originally said that I would do it, and written to him that I would do it. And yet I sat on it and really didn't do anything with it. And then all of a sudden inspiration came through him, and he started to write it. And I had written to him at that point and said, I always knew you were meant to do it. So to help him to grow, it was for me not to do that, to give him the space for it to come through him. And in that same time frame, I had written to him and shared with him some letters from people, that I mentor, of how grateful they were to me for, the help that I've given them on the journey. And he had written back to me in response and said, I already know who you are. I don't need to read anything. And then he put who I am to him, which is from Song of the Troubadour, and I will read that, in which it says, in the stillness a dream brought both breath and churning in the heart of the troubadour. The princess felt his being as she was in life. Her hair was like an endless field at harvest. Her eyes were the very soul of the universe revealing itself. Her lips were a banquet set for a king. Her ears were the reason songs were born. Her cheeks were the promise a kiss could be, both the stream and the bridge to fulfill life's purpose. Her mouth was the very breath that filled sails and turned them to the very body of this same woman. Her neck was the nectar that fed his soul. Her breasts were the stirring of all winds and seas held captive by the mountains and shores they were born from. Her body was the stillness unleashed, no longer able to contain the torrent holding both heartbeat and breath. The sacredness of womanhood upon her body was an entrance to the very heart of oneness. Love colliding with life, and life colliding with itself. The meeting point of the sun with the space it moves within layers there. The life given to this entrance is the life filling the body that sustains it. Her legs were the pillar of the temple, not for lust of what could be obtained, but in honor and reverence of why the temple was built. Divine source is worshipped, and the temple was created for this purpose. Not only a monument, but the incense and prayers answered from this same temple were in her limbs. Her feet were the foundation his earth was built upon. So again, how deeply in vulnerableness and amazingness my beloved sweet troubadour is. He shared with me of who he knows I am to him, of his being his princess. And later on, he would write a few days later, "You have read my works, like Song of the Troubadour, and hear my songs. You know my life and what I'm about. Of course I say I love you to you, genuinely and from the heart." From my heart. Indeed, from my heart, from his heart. Within that, on summer solstice that year, I created the first video of his music, and had sent it to him as a gift, and that gift was I Am We Are video. And then subsequently other videos we would create also. We Are All One, which is also listed on the YouTube page. And his response to that video was, "My heart is leaping." A newborn fawn just born was part of what was viewed today. 3 eagles circled above through my meditation on the shore also. Mariposa lilies were unfolding on the trail, and the Saskatoon berries, and such also danced. None gladdened my heart as much as this video. Your expression of love and light has brought me to tears. 2,500 years and a half a world away, dying trees still grown greener as you pray. North and south, there is no distance or time when such beauty and truth are manifest. Namaste, Troubadour. Each one of the videos that I've created for him, he has loved and beloved, and their video descriptions in their various forms. He would also later write to me in August that year, when he had asked me to write Song of the Princess. He had sent me his song, Watching These Stars. And he had written to me this, "Precious, this song is from the master artist, deep upon the bitter seas, as winter pierces the very core of his being. The songs need to be given to the world. My time of seclusion is over. I don't just want a lover, I desire the real princess. I desire you, precious, with all I am, more than you may ever understand I do. And I want the music to be given to the world. Listen close. If greater can be given through song, then I vow that I will come back to the shore and embrace you, my princess. Kisses and namaste, Troubadour." And it is because that promise that he said, that vow, that he wants the music to be given to the world, and that he desires me the real princess, more than I understand. That's why I'm doing these videos. That's why what happened last night happened. That's why I know for our growth that this has to happen. It's just pouring through me in inspiration. It's our next steps. It's what's meant to be. And for you on your journey, there is a deep soul recognition when you come into your journey. I will speak about Song of the Princess in the next video. But in your journey, when you connect with your twin soul in that sacred union, that sacred path, things such of this magnitude of this soul recognition in various ways may happen for you. Phone calls, letters, a coming together physically. I will share of our coming together physically also in the next video, because it parlays into what the next phases of the journey are for us, and also the next phases or stages of the twin soul journey of the sacred path, sacred union, having to do with the testing of that love and the crisis and the crises that can happen, and the runner dynamic and all of those things entwined of things that happened. And I will backtrack a little bit also within that and share a few things that happened also intermixed with what I just shared in this video. And just know that the twin soul journey is very real. A lot of people don't understand it, and that's okay. There is a core group of us here on this earth right now of twin souls that are here to come together. And some may not understand, and that's okay. If you are watching this video, then there's a calling, and you've watched my other videos. There's a calling deep within your heart that somehow, some way, you know that you've connected with your twin soul in some form or fashion. Maybe it's only energetically right now, as I talked about in the first video, before my beloved and I came together, physically, maybe it is physical. And you are in that space of doubt, being unsure because the ego's kicked in that runner dynamic, which I'm going to talk about in the next video. Maybe you're having a doubt, but please do know that the twin soul journey is very real. And I do have letters from my beloved in which he acknowledges that we are twin souls as well. Even if the ego comes up in denial, there's a deep calling and intuition within your heart, as you can see from everything I've shared in this video here, that your intuition knows, your heart knows, even if the ego comes in and kicks in later with that fear and doubt. And so if you're watching this video and any of my videos, then your heart knows. Follow your heart. May your heart be guided by that love, and may your songs echo this same heart. Espada.